How's it going? Everybody, UG here, and today I'm going to be talking about the big ret changes that are happening on Tuesday. So first off, let's just talk about the Paladin overall changes. These affect ret quite a bit actually. So first off, Divine Protection is getting buffed by 10%, which is not really helpful for ret because ret's Divine Protection is still really bad. It's still like the weird 1 minute 30 cooldown one, even though they nerfed the cooldown of Shield of Vengeance, they didn't also nerf the cooldown of Divine Protection. So it's still not really super useful for ret, so this doesn't matter too much. Flash of Light healing getting buffed by 15%. That means we can play the Flash of Light proc spec a bit more, just to get a bit more instant healing out. It's gonna probably be better in solo shuffle, potentially, because a lot of times you don't need the short lay on hands in solo shuffle because games are never gonna last 3 minutes for you to get your second lay on hands. So this is actually a pretty nice buff. Then kind of a pretty big change. They're making so Orb Reckoning takes 100 stacks instead of 50 to get your wings effect. Now, this is pretty significant. This could honestly make it so you don't just always just auto-play Orb Reckoning, which is kind of interesting. Into certain teams where you get Reckoning stacks really, really fast, you're probably just going to want to play it. But into other teams, you might want to test it out, figure out exactly how many stacks, figure out exactly how long it takes to get 100 stacks. And if it's taking more than like a minute, it's not really gonna be worth playing. So this is kind of interesting because it makes it so that we have a lot more versatility in our honor talents, even though it is overall making us weaker. But I don't know, kind of interesting change. And next one, they buff Consecration damage by 50%. I don't personally like this. I hate Consecration. I wish they just delete the ability, but you know, into melee cleaves, if you play the Consecration build, it could be decent. Next up, the Ret Paladin specific changes. So the two big ones are they're nerfing Final Rec and Radiant Decree. So the Final Rec one, I don't think is actually going to be that big of a change because it's still going to potentially be hitting for over 100k. Because right now it can hit up to like 140k, so 20% of that it's going to be hitting for like 110, 120k. They're not nerfing, however, the bonus damage you get after using Final Rec, which is kind of surprising because I think that's the most problematic part of the ability. And then Radiant Decree getting nerfed by 33%, and it's also getting nerfed by an extra 5% because of the 2-set nerf. But I think this is actually a really good change. Radiant Decree is a really toxic build right now, and I personally don't even think it's that fun to play. I think this is a pretty good and fair nerf. And honestly, Wake hits really hard also still, just even without speccing into Radiant Decree. So this is going to be kind of interesting. Next up, they're buffing Crusader Strike again by 50%, which is kind of cool. Crusader Strike can actually hit kind of hard during wings now. Like I've hit it for up to 24k. So if it's getting buffed by 50%, it could hit for like 30, 40k potentially. That's kind of not really just a filler move anymore. That's kind of cool. Then a really cool one is they're buffing Healing Hands by 20% if you be combat. This will make it so our WOG is actually more usable, especially when we're at low HP. I kind of wish they just completely reverted the nerf because ret healing right now isn't even that good at all. I think that it could really use the buff to WOG, at least to make up for the burst that we're losing. But then some kind of cool changes is they're buffing Templar's Verdict and Final Verdict by 10%. Now, I'm not sure if this ends up being a 20% buff to Final Verdict because a lot of the times, the way it works is if you buff Templars, just that buff alone buffs Final Verdict, and then Final Verdict is getting another 10% buff. So it could be getting a 20% damage buff. I'm not 100% sure. That's how it would have worked with the Legendary and Shadowlands. I just don't know if it's going to be working kind of differently. And then another really interesting thing is they're buffing the damage of Exorcism by 80%, which is kind of crazy because Exorcism actually hits kind of hard. At least it was on beta. It was like hitting about as hard as your Templars were hitting when you had 4-set and everything. So buffing that by 80%, that could be hitting kind of hard. You could kind of more consistently play that ability. That could be really interesting. And especially since they're buffing the Consecration damage, pairing that with Exorcism could be kind of cool into kind of like the Cleavier matches where you're playing against double melees that are just sitting there and face taking damage. I'm definitely going to want to try that out. And next up, they're nerfing Lawbringer by 2%. You know, I don't think that's really too big of a change, but it's kind of fine also because right now Lawbringer is just like a must pick giving it a bit more like giving us a bit more options, since with having our two like must pick talents getting nerfed is kind of interesting. It makes it so that we just get to pick more things. I hate having nothing that I can change from my build, which is kind of what we're at right now. The only thing I can change usually is, oh, am I playing against melee? I'll go eye for eye. Oh, am I not playing against melee? I'll go JV. That's kind of just how it's been. I really like most of these changes. I really do not like the Radiant Decree one-shot build that we've been going for the past couple weeks. And now that that is nerfed, it's going to be kind of a bit more consistent damage, especially with the Templars buffs. Could go for more of like a Final Verdict build instead of the big one-shot build. Get kind of more consistent 30-second goes rather than the big 1-minute goes. But I don't think Ret's going to be really in a bad spot. The biggest nerf to it, honestly, is the Aura of Reckoning nerf. We're just not going to really be getting wings as consistently as before. But I don't know. A lot of that was really cheesy too, because if you wanted to set it up perfectly, you'd have to like hold auto attacks, make sure that you're not proccing wings until your go starting, and it's just not really that fun of a playstyle. So overall, I think these changes are kind of the right direction for Ret. I hope that in the next season, they said that they're making some decent changes to the Ret talent tree. Maybe they give us some mobility. Maybe they finally realized that it was a bad idea to not give us long arm of the law. That'd be really cool. Just kind of nerf the top end a bit too, buff the consistent, which they kind of are doing right now. Yeah, that's about it for me. I think Ret's going to be honestly in a better state than it was before, in my opinion. Maybe not quite as strong because you're not going to just cheese one-shot people as consistently, but I think it's still going to be hitting really hard during burst, and it's going to do way better consistently now too. But yeah, that's all. Peace.